Good morning, everybody, and blessed Samhain. Today is Saturday, November the 1st of 2025. I'm sorry that I'm a little stuffy. I am still trying to recover from some sort of virus that I picked up, I think at retreat. So I have been on my fall break. I had a procedure this week, and Neptune and Mars are definitely stoking the fires of my health related issues. So again, apologies. I am moving a little slow, and the effects of anesthesia have carried pretty well all week. So luckily my brain is wired for mystical things like astrology. So let's go ahead and dive in. You will see the tarot/oracle, even journal prompts that are attached to this. There are three main transits that I am the most focused on this week, and that's where I'm going to start. And then I'll tell you the other play-by-plays. So one of the very most important things that's happening this week is going to be the Taurus full moon. The Taurus full moon is going to be at 13 degrees of Taurus. And I mean, it's a pretty big one. It's not something that, we want to play with, because Taurus is very, like, it can be very gentle, but also at the same time, it can be extremely stubborn, especially if it gets provoked. So Taurus is associated with the bull, and the bull, can see red. So it can definitely create some intensity. So that's going to be in the middle of our week on Wednesday, November the 5th at 8:19 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we will get to that here in a minute. The second transit that I have decided is like the next most important transit is going to be Mars ingressing Sagittarius and moving into 0 degrees of Sag, and immediately opposing Uranus retrograde at 0 degrees of Gemini. So Uranus and Mars opposite each other are very severing. They have Mars is the blade and Uranus is severance. So there's something that is definitely like coming to completion, like some sort of Kali blade of truth that is coming. We're going to talk a lot about that because of the heavy amount of Sagittarius that is in the skies as we progress, not just through this week, but through really the next 5-6 weeks, because the next most important thing that I'm noting this week is going to be Mercury retrograde starting at 6 degrees of Sagittarius on Sunday, November the 9th. Now, it's going to spend the majority of its retrograde in the late degrees of Scorpio, but it is still going to start in Sagittarius. So it has this important aspect to it. So let's go ahead and just kind of jump right in, and then I'll give you all the play-by-plays. So the full moon in Taurus on Wednesday. Like I said, it's going to be at 13 degrees of Taurus. But one of the very powerful and harmonious and positive aspects in this lunation, and I want to just note that, like, this week is going to be a hard week. There are quite a few aspects that are going on that are lots of squares, lots of oppositions, a lot of disruption, a lot of potential like latent anger and rage coming up to the surface. And then early next week on Tuesday, the 11th, we've got Jupiter stationing retrograde at 25 degrees of Cancer, which is going to be almost an exact trine to Saturn at 25 degrees of Pisces, and also our Chiron retrograde at 24 degrees of Aries at this point. There is a lot of feelings going on here. There is also a lot of rethinking what is our truth, what is our philosophy, what is our mindset, where are we with the sense of optimism and the ability to fight for the truth, which is Sagittarius. So we've got quite a bit to discuss. So let's go ahead and really drop into this transmission. So let's actually, you know what I want to orient myself around the layout of the week, and then we'll come back to the bigger pieces. That feels best to my brain right now. So the very first thing I want to do is retrospect a little bit into last week. So on Wednesday, October the 29th, that is when Mercury entered or ingressed 0 degrees of Sagittarius. Okay. And that's also the day that we had the first quarter moon at 6 degrees of Aquarius. Well, that moon was technically in a wide orb, but conjunct Pluto, freshly direct. And it had a lot to say, We're going to talk about that more in a second too. But immediately when Mercury moved into Sagittarius, it also immediately opposed Uranus retrograde at 0 degrees of Gemini. So it started to bring a lot of conversation up and mindset, but it isn't just like how you think. It's way deeper than that. Mercury and Sagittarius are opposite each other. Their axis is the axis of thinking and knowing. So in all of the ways that all of the planets, the zodiac signs, have their oppositional axis that brings them some sense of balance, Mercury and Sagittarius have a very, or sorry, not Mercury, Gemini and Sagittarius have a very interesting relationship. And a lot of it is around the mind. A lot of it is around belief and insight, and our mindsets. So Mercury rules Gemini and is marked by the god known as Hermes, Thoth, Mercury, all the same god, just through different pantheons. But he is the god of communication and commerce and trades, contracts. He's also the only god that can traverse into the underworld and leave. Like, he can go freely from the underworld and leave. He is the winged messenger. He has wings on his feet, and he can be tied to many different forms of communication and thought, depending on the sign that he's in. Well, right now we have Uranus entering Sagittarius for the first time. I'm sorry, guys. Like I said, the anesthesia is still, I'm still working my way, digesting it out of my system, metabolizing it, I guess. And it's also Mercury retrograde, where you kind of like have to, you stumble on your words and you get things mixed up. I have dyslexia, which is probably what makes me so great at astrology, but it definitely gets picked up when Mercury is retrograde for me personally. So with regard to the Mercury being in Sagittarius and Uranus being in Gemini, Gemini is the lower mind, and it's not necessarily a hierarchy. It rules the 3rd house, which is your early childhood experience. It tells us a lot about your early life, like settings, like your factory settings. What were the beliefs that your caregivers had? What was the, kind of the mindset and the routine, and what were you taught when you were from the age of kindergarten up, to high school, when you lived with your caregivers? What was the vibe there? Because that really dictates a lot of the 3rd house, which is like your internal disposition that you were raised with. Does not mean that you haven't cultivated that significantly since, learning about this or going through a spiritual awakening or whatever it is. But it doesn't change the fact that it's still what we call the chitta house. It's the house of the mind shit. Like, this is where we are when we're just thinking, our everyday conscious mind, what we know, or what we think we know. Then Sagittarius is the 9th house, which is opposite the 3rd house, and it's ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is the teacher. He is also the god Zeus. And he is about the higher mind. He's about the education that you gain when you go to college and you get away from your home environment and you learn like, oh, the ways of the world, or when you go out and travel and your mind wakes up and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know how privileged I was, or I didn't know that this is how the rest of the world worked. So it's like your higher mind, your belief systems that are growing and evolving. And it is the process of evolving into higher levels of consciousness, your spirituality. It's also the house of dogma, though. It's also the house of courts and judges and lawyers. So lots of politics are handled in the 8th and the 9th house, which we're going to be hearing about quite a lot because the Mercury retrograde starts in Sag and pulls into Scorpio. And Scorpio rules politics and power struggles. So a lot of, what happened last week is that first quarter moon, the first quarter moon is the challenge. It's the thing that kind of locks you in. Like, are you going to do what you said you're going to do at the new moon? If at the new moon, you're like, I'm going to start walking 3 days a week, and you get, to a week later to the new moon, and it's like, hey, you said you were going to do something and you didn't do it. You're going to feel the tension of, are you going to do what you said you're going to do? It's also a test. It's a test to see what your resolve is. Okay. With it being conjunct Pluto, it is a really big question. It's a 20-year transit. Pluto in Aquarius is going to be there till 2044. So it's a mindset. There is an era shift that is happening at the time of all of these transits. There are 66 major transits in November of 2025. 66. It is a turning point in the year. And I know we've had quite a few of those, but this is like what we call an era shift. This is when we are like looking back one more time, because next week Uranus is going to re-enter 29 degrees of Taurus retrograde for the last time in 84 years. And it's really going to force us to look at our values, our concept of financial structure and security. And a lot of things are getting disrupted in many, many ways. Our philosophies, our sense of security, especially with Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, which is security, like really wanting to feel safe at home. And there's a lot of things going on right now, a lot. And I won't go into all of it because I've been yapping about it for 2-3 years at this point about this particular time. So this is largely last week was a bit of a touch of what is coming in November, and an activator. All right. It was meant to turn the heat on. And then the sun, moved into Aries. The moon is going to move into Aries on Sunday, which is November the 2nd. So right now, at the time of this recording, the moon is in Pisces, and it's just a lot of feelings. All right. And it's in the middle of the decan in Pisces, but by tomorrow, Sunday, and even tonight on Saturday, we are going to have Pisces, the moon in Pisces, conjunct Saturn retrograde at 25 degrees Pisces. And this is the degree that Saturn is going to get to in Pisces, and it will stay here until it stations retrograde. And it's the last time Saturn's going to be in any degree of Pisces for 30 years, 27 technically, but this last time. So there is a lot of retrograde energy that is forcing us to kind of look backwards, to rethink our philosophies, our mindsets, challenge old beliefs, reset new ones, look for where our mindsets are toxic to us. What do we need to rework in our minds? What kind of belief systems do we need to rework and reclaim and transform? The sun is in Scorpio right now. It does not care if it's scary. It's ruled by Pluto. Pluto wants you to look at the things that you're afraid of and face them and transform them and alchemize your fear into power. So in a lot of ways, the universe is really, really giving us some strong invitations to step up and transform into a higher evolution of ourselves as we move into a higher octave of consciousness in society over the next 20 years, with Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus being in Gemini for the next 8 years. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and get to where we are at the time of this recording. So on Monday, November the 11th, the moon is in Aries, so it's got some heat to it. When the moon is in Aries, it especially late Aries, it's got some heat to it right now because Chiron is retrograde at 24 degrees of Aries, and the moon goes over it every single month, and it brings this feeling of like loss, especially around the sense of self because it's in Aries, which, you know, Chiron in Aries has been here by the time it leaves for 8.5 years, and it really was a generation of the self-help individuation process. It will shift when Uranus moves into Taurus in 2027. So, you know, that'll be a different wound. That'll be more about our sense of self-worth and value and financial security and the economics. Like, and we'll deal with that when we get there, one crisis at a time. But the most powerful aspect on Monday is it's going to be a quincunx. A quincunx is 150 degrees. It's the aspect I call between a rock and a hard place, or the failure to integrate. Libra and Pisces are in a quincunx to each other. They are 5 houses apart, and they just don't know how to vibe together. Libra wants to talk. It wants clear communication. It wants balance. It wants a sense of directness. I mean, it is the judge after all. And Pisces is the 2 swimming fish. It wants to muse about things. It wants to take its time. It wants to move on its own timeline and time zone. And Libra is like, okay, I literally, I can't connect with you. So there is, you know, just a sense of disconnection between the 2 of them. Well, at that time, Venus is quincunxing Saturn. So Venus will be at 25 degrees of Libra, and Saturn retrograde will be at 25 degrees of Pisces. So there's just kind of this disconnection. It's like a disability to connect. And it is a fast aspect. It's not lasting forever, but it does start off the week, which is quite volatile. This week coming up is volatile. The entire month of November is a whole change. I mean, it is a whole change between all the retrogrades and Scorpio season and Uranus opposite Mercury and Mars and Venus square Pluto. Like, we've got some gnarly stuff coming up to the surface to be dealt with. What feels like, you know, once and for all, but it's never really once and for all. It is this feeling of like some things need to be put to death. And we just had Samhain, which is when we do put things to death so that new things can be born in the spring. That's a lot of what's happening. So, you know, when we move into Tuesday, that's a really, really important day. Mars is going to ingress 0 degrees of Sagittarius at 8 a.m. on Tuesday the 4th. Okay. The moon is going to enter Taurus at 11:15 a.m. And then Mars is going to be exactly opposite Uranus by 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's like literally 4 hours of a lot of really intense energy, because the moment that the moon moves into any of the fixed signs, which is Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, or Aquarius, it's either going to square Pluto or it's going to conjunct Pluto. When the moon is in Aquarius right now, it always is going to conjunct Pluto. And it's going to be like that for 20 years. Okay. That is a synodic cycle, meaning that it happens very, very similar. Well, technically synodic is once every year, but it happens on a lunar cycle every single 29.5 days. So every, you know, month we kind of get this check-in on like evolution. What kind of evolution are you making? Now, Tuesday is a day that I'm like, guys, I mean, really the whole week, especially with the moon starting off in Aries, which is the warrior and is at peace and war. It's also courage, though, and the ability to take initiation and leadership. So it's how you use it is what's important. And also the moon in Taurus, square Pluto, which is going to make us stubborn as hell and want to cling on to things that make us feel secure. And then Mars, which is the blade, and Uranus, which is the higher octave of Mars in regards to how it can sever things, are going to, I mean, they're like a battle of philosophy. Sagittarius is not interested in like data, it's interested in the quest for truth. It's interested in the journey. And, um, you know, Mercury is very much about like information, data. We don't necessarily need any sense of like truth or a final understanding. Mercury is meant to stay curious and to collect data, information, gossip, whatever. So there is a potential here for some intensity as we work our way into Wednesday, which on Wednesday we have our full moon at 13 degrees of Taurus. And the positive aspect here that's going to take almost a year to perfect, just so you guys know, and this is a helpful aspect, is that we have Jupiter at 25 degrees of Cancer, not retrograde yet, in a trine, which is harmonious from water sign to water sign, in a trine to Saturn retrograde at 25 degrees of Pisces. So Saturn creates maturity, endurance, resilience, mastery through testing. So it's not easy. There is no easy way when Saturn is in the mix. It requires a lot of trials and tribulations, but that's how you become a master of things. Saturn rules gray hairs. So, you know, like you got to fight for something. You really got to be committed to your belief, your dream, Pisces. And that aspect has been there since spring of 2023, which correlated also with the North Node being in Aries, making us, you know, want to be brave and initiate change so that we could be authentic to ourselves. Okay. So that aspect is going to create hope because of Pisces. It's also going to pull the dream back up, the vision back up, Pisces. And it's going to test us in our patience, our resolve, and our resilience. I know I've said it probably 1,000 times since spring of 2023, but that is Saturn in Pisces says a dream without a plan is just a wish. It just is. It has to have a structure. It has to have bones. It has to have an architecture. And that is why I literally birthed out the architect program, because I knew that that's what was needed in this period of time. So we will return back to self-concept in spring when we have Neptune and also Saturn re-enter early Aries. And it becomes about us again, about our individuation process and taking initiative as an individual. But right now, with Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, and with these aspects, it's really forcing us to come back to the philosophy, your belief systems, and your dreams. Is it really possible? Are you really going to fight for this? How are you going to challenge your lower egoic beliefs? Third house, the chitta of your mind, your early childhood environment, your factory settings. Your third house is your factory settings. It is your early life programming. How are you going to combat that and release the internal fear and negativity so that you can reinvent yourself and become the creatrix or the creator of this dream vision and embody it? It's a test, and it's not a short test. This is a test that by the end of it will be at least a 4 to 5 year test of seeing the dream come into completion. And we're really only about 3.5 years into that. Okay. So that's kind of like that bigger vision. Now, the intensity of the full moon is gonna not just wane down, because on Thursday we have Venus ingress Scorpio. Venus hates being in Scorpio. She loves being in Libra, where she is right now. It's about talking. It's about balance. It's about harmony. It's about peacemaking. It's about clear communication for reconnection or for balance and connection. But Venus in Scorpio is the swamp. She does not like being in Scorpio. She is at a great disadvantage in Scorpio. Venus in Scorpio really struggles with feelings of jealousy and envy and even obsession or paranoia, fears of like things like being cheated on or bringing stalkers back around. So this is, about a 6-week to 5-week aspect. And it is my least favorite place for her to be, especially while Mercury is going to be retrograde in Scorpio too, really bringing a lot up to the surface. And we will talk about that more as we progress through November, but that's coming. Like that's going to start to ingress its way in. For those of you guys that are born between 1985 to about 1990, you're going to feel Venus conjunct your Pluto. And for those from 1990 to 1993, you guys will feel that over about 2 weeks from now. So when Mercury is really fully retrograde, because of the fact that it's going to conjunct your Pluto. That's when Pluto was in Scorpio. And it brings up this deep, immense fear of whatever is in the basement of your subconscious, my friends. And that is why shadow work during Mercury retrograde is such a big deal. It is also why I'm running a short master series on Mercury retrograde and shadow work. Make sure you guys check it out. It's something that is in an addition to what I already offer. You guys are welcome to join. But it is going to be a lot of emotional detective work for ourselves, and also to trust the people in our lives, the things that we've built. It can really bring some kind of gnarly stuff up to the surface because it largely rules your subconscious and your deepest relational fears and financial fears. Okay. So Friday the 11th, or sorry, 11/7, Uranus is going to retrograde and re-enter back to 29 degrees of Taurus, and Venus is going to square Pluto exactly, creating tension and drama. Pluto rules extremes and intensity. So I am mentally trying to prepare that next week is going to be intense. And I think that you should too. Very emotionally intense and some volatility. Okay. Then on Saturday, the moon's going to move into Cancer. And luckily, like Saturday, the 8th is pretty chill, but that's because we're still summering from the craziness of the past week. And then Sunday, Mercury is going to station retrograde at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at 6 degrees of Sagittarius. Okay. So I know that's a lot. That's already 30 minutes of information that you guys are probably like, Lauren, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. That's okay. I have 3 that I'm going to ask you guys. My job is to help you guys make sense of it. And I understand that sometimes hearing all of these things can make you just end up feeling scared if you are looking for somebody to help you understand what this aspects are about and how to make the most of it, how to make the most of your Mercury retrograde. Make sure that you consider doing one of my Mercury retrograde reading specials and join my Mercury retrograde masterclass. I'd love to have you there. All right, to these prompts. So the first one is the full moon in Taurus. The question is, what wants to be rooted and kept? What needs to be released so my body can feel safe again? This full moon is going to eliminate where you've been overextending for security. So you're really trying to understand, like, what am I clinging to that is draining my energy? What would make me feel held, nourished, and safe to grow again? Let your body, not your mind, answer here, guys. Taurus rules the body. Uranus in Gemini square Mars and Sag. I'm calling this the sacred disruption. Where is spirit asking me to pivot now, even if it disrupts my current plan? Uranus is the ruler of pivots, guys. I mean, absolutely. This is like a cosmic rebellion energy. Uranus wants freedom and Mars wants purpose. Together, they shake loose anything that's keeping you small. So really what you're thinking is like, what truth am I avoiding? Because it might change everything. What's the risk that actually leads to liberation? Let this be a breakthrough and not a breakdown. And last but not least, Mercury retrograde in Sag, the truth rewritten. What story about my path needs to be rewritten so it actually matches my lived truth? This is an alignment card. So Mercury here is asking for some sort of belief cleanup, or like a truth recalibration is what I'm calling it. So what you're really thinking about is like, where have I been performing wisdom instead of living it? What belief system or label no longer fits who I have become? Retrogrades are for editing the vision, not erasing it or abandoning it. Okay. So I hope that this has been helpful to you guys. For those of you that are in my Sovereign Architect container, I'll see you guys on Monday for our live discussion. And we're going to be working a lot around vision and the re-editing of our beliefs and how it's going to get us closer or further away from our visions and our manifestation process. For those of you guys who happen to catch this from one of my other ways of offering information, please make sure that you guys check out my programs, my work, my coaching. I would absolutely love to support you as you pursue your soul purpose, your dharma in this lifetime, and your devotion. So, all right, until next time, I'll see you guys.